your hair.
From the Miley vine from the mountains of Hawaii, my most precious gift, my love I give to you. To you, a Miley lay for your hair. A Miley lay for your hair has a tender meaning. It's a sweet aloha made with love and care.
Right now, I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Nancy Montfort. She's going to officiate your services today. Once again, thank you very much. Reverend?
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is truly my honor and my privilege to join with you today. Many of you who've come remember Norman as a Las Vegas legend, a musician and an exceptional singer, a prolific songwriter, the poet laureate for the state of Nevada, an incredibly talented man who was warm and generous, who never forgot a name. He always had a song in his heart and a love for all the people that were around him. He was a son, a brother, a husband, a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a friend, I think, to most of Las Vegas, a colleague, and an amazingly successful businessman. Today we come and we are going to celebrate Norman because his life is worth celebrating. Celebrate his legacy that he has left. And so I welcome you and I thank you for coming to honor him in his life and remember him in his death. As we begin, I'd like to open in prayer. Would you pray with me, please? Lord Jesus, we gather today to celebrate the life of Norman Kaye, a very, very special person who has touched the hearts of all of us gathered today in one way or the other. We thank you for the amazing person he was. We miss his presence with us, oh God, but you are the one that can bring comfort to all of us who've gathered here. So I invite your presence to be with us as we celebrate his life. And I pray this in Jesus' name, amen. Norman Kahahui was born on September 22nd, 1922 in Detroit, Michigan, to Johnny and Maud Kahahui. His sister Mary was born 2 years later. Norman began performing, as I understand, around the ripe old age of 3. His father had opened the Royal Hawaiian School of Music in St. Louis, and as a child, he and his sister Mary performed for the parents who enrolled their children in that school. And at the age of 10, he was performing all over and was very, very accomplished. They played in their father's band, John Kahui Royal Hawaiians, and then at age 18, Norman left to join the Army and serve in World War II. He was awarded a Bronze Star during his time in World War II and served his country proudly. Upon discharge from the Army in 1946, he joined his sister Mary, singing and playing in a group that evolved into the Mary Kaye Trio with comedian Frank Ross. Boy, could they play music and sing. The trio played at clubs in St. Louis, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Houston, and Reno. And in, I believe, 1948, they arrived in Las Vegas, and the Mary Kaye Trio opened the Lounge Act at the Last Frontier Hotel, pioneering the first lounge show in Las Vegas. And they were the ones that established Las Vegas as a 24-hour town and are directly responsible for the live lounge acts that continue the 24 tradition in Las Vegas today. The late night place to be in Las Vegas at the time was where the Mary Kaye Trio was playing. Nightly, celebrities would come down and hang out when they were in town. Elvis was a personal friend of Norman's. Doris Day, Judy Garland, Bob Hope, Charlton Heston, the Rat Pack, and many, many more, I'm sure, were there hanging out with the Mary Kaye Trio. Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, and others would drop by nightly, hop up on the stage, and join the fun. They appeared at the El Rancho, the Sahara, the Tropicana, the Frontier, the Sands, and I'm sure I missed a few, on numerous television specials, including Milton Berle, Gary Moore, Perry Como, Pat Boone, Dinah Shore, the Kate Smith special when the guest star was John Wayne, Joan Davis, Carol Burnett, Gene Barry, Red Skelton, and many, many more. They also were in the movies. Cha Cha Boom and Calypso Rock were two of the movies that they appeared in. They not only entertained and performed here, but they did internationally. In Sydney, Australia, and London, England, and it was in London where they met the Beatles. As a matter of fact, I was really jealous when I found out that Norman's children were in the front row and the Beatles were in Vegas. That must have been really fun, you guys. They met Richard and Sybil Burton, Peter O'Toole, Dusty Springfield, and many English dignitaries at an afternoon party held in their honor in London. In August of 1966, they closed at the Tropicana Blue Room to a packed house with some of the top names in the film and music industry. Their sense of humor was always at the forefront of their act. And for over 2 decades, from the 40s to the 60s, their love of music and entertaining and their intense dedication to each other was unfailing. In 1999, the Mary Kaye Trio was inducted into the Casino Legend Hall of Fame at the Tropicana Hotel for their contribution to the music scene of Las Vegas. The family has prepared a video with music and memories of the Mary Kaye Trio. Let's enjoy it together.
Are you trapped in the web of love, never knowing which way to go? Is it all such a big surprise? Does it hurt you now that you know? You're a fool, you're a fool. Ha 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 ha, they all laugh. You're a fool.
Who's rushing where angels fear to tread? And so I come to you, my love, my heart above my head. Though I see the danger there, if there's a chance for me, then I don't care. Who's rushing where wise men never go? But wise men never fall in love, so how are they to know? I felt my life begin, so open up your heart and let this fool rush in.
Are you sure you're not doing wrong? What's the good if he won't love you? And the one there's a great big chance that you wind up alone and blue.
I'm in love.
She's in love.
Can't hear a word that you say. I'm in love. Though I see the danger there, if there's a chance for me, then I don't care. I don't care who's rushing. Where wise men never go, but wise men never fall in love. So how are they to know?
Here's the words you will hear her say.
Like such an exciting thing, in my heart I can hear it ring. I'm in love, I'm in love. Ha ha, the laugh is on you.
to your head. Well, I just want to say thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're a wonderful audience. And now, for the benefit of those that don't have programs, we'd like to introduce the players. First, the entry, the Pineapple Twins. They come in two crazy sizes, you know. Crushed and chunky. Step down here, you're breaking up the set. But ladies and gentlemen, we furthermore would like to...
Aloha, ladies and gentlemen, aloha. It really thrills me to be playing for all you wonderful folks. I'd like to present my mom. Mom and I are going to do a tune together without him.
Oh, no, you don't quite understand. We do this later. I'll do an accordion solo right now.
I don't want to hurt your feelings, Frank, but these folks aren't ready for your type of night.
I've worked these saloons before. I know what these drunks want to hear. Would you introduce me, please?
What do you drunks want to hear?
We want to hear some calypso.
No, I'm sorry, fella. We don't do calypso tunes.
Buster, it's very, very simple. We want to hear some calypso.
Give a dart right in the head. Now, listen, you be a nice boy and sit there and drink your beer, and we'll get to you later.
We came here to hear some calypso.
Look, fella, please, leave him alone. We'll do a calypso, too.
And as they whirl around the floor, everyone's in a trance. It's the greatest to see them sway all around the floor. And everybody makes the bend for more. Can't you hear it, baby? And the music's hot. For the boys jumping to calypso rock. Join us, won't you? Go, baby, calypso, baby, rock. I'm happy, baby, so happy, baby, rock. Manuel dances round the floor. He makes the fancy steps. And as we watch, we realize, boy, he really full of pep. The senoritas give the eye. They want to make the date. But he loves the calypso dance, so they just sit and wait. It's the coolest, baby. Let the joints on fire. Stand with you, baby. That's my one desire. Go, baby. Calypso, baby, rock. I'm happy, baby. So happy, baby, rock. Go, baby. Calypso, baby, rock. Swing. I'm trying. Go, baby. Calypso, baby, rock.
The amazing Mary Kaye Trio. That was fun. The Mary Kaye Trio was a huge part of Norman's life, but he also had many natural gifts and was very successful in many other ways. Norman Kaye Real Estate was the first brokerage firm in Southern Nevada in 1957, and it grew to be the largest and most successful independent operation from 1963 to 1972, with, interestingly enough, I learned from his sons when I met with them, branches in multiple countries, like Beirut was one of them that they shared with me. That is just amazing to me at that time, the vision that he had as a businessman. He served on many, many, many community boards and received numerous accolades for his community service. From the porter to the pit boss, the families who bought a house from Norman to Elvis and the Beatles, Norman knew their names and treated them the same. He was an amazing gentleman. He was appointed Poet Laureate of the state of Nevada in 1967, serving as the active poet laureate for 40 years and poet laureate emeritus when he passed away. He lived a life that was full and rewarding. He was a family man and friend, entertainer, humanitarian, philanthropist, educator, and entrepreneur. And believe me, perhaps more than anyone else in Las Vegas, he left his handprint of love on people's hearts. Norman is survived by his wife, Barbara Meriwether Kaye, a daughter, Sherry Marshall, 4 sons, John, I see John, Tracy, there you are, John, Tracy, Richard, and Dawn. Numerous grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews, great-nieces, great-nephews. He has left a legacy to his family. Norman's love of music was passed down to him by his grandfather's generation. Norman's grandfather was Prince Kuhio, who was the younger brother of Queen Liliuokalani, the last reigning monarch of Hawaii. Queen Liliuokalani wrote many of the standard Hawaiian songs that are performed today, including maybe one of the most famous, Aloha Oe. His grandfather's sister wrote that song. He composed many, many songs over the years, but he established himself as a gifted Hawaiian songwriter when he wrote the favorite island song, A Maili Lei for Your Hair. He also wrote the lyrics to the Hawaiian wedding song. He was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award for songwriters at the Royal Hawaiian in 2009. In a moment, we're going to listen to A Maili Lei for Your Hair, performed by Norman. And as we do, Tracy, I would ask you, please, Barbara, Tracy is going to come and place a rosebud haku lei on you as an expression of his father's love for you. Would you come now as they play A Maili Lei for Your Hair?
A maili lei for your hair.
From the Maili vine from the mountains of Hawaii, my most precious gift, my love I give to you. To you, a maili lei for your hair. A maili lei for your hair has a tender meaning. It's a sweet aloha made with love and care. From mountains kissing the blue, near the ridge of heaven,
Heaven's ridge.
I have brought this maili love for you. Fashioned by the sun, beauty just for you, my lovely one. A maili lei for your hair is a crown of glory,
A lovely crown.
It's the sweetest story
Maili lei.
of my love for you.
My love, my kuipo I bring to you.
just for you, my lovely one.
My lovely one.
Ah, my lay for your head. Here's a crown of glory. It's the sweetest story of my love for you. For you, my love. Of my love for you. For you, my love. Of my love for you. Of my love for your
Norman is a recognized singer-songwriter in the entertainment industry as well. He wrote songs for Johnny Mathis, Perry Como, Tennessee Ernie Ford, Vicky Carr, and many, many more. Blue Jean Baby, written by Norman, was a rock and roll favorite, #1 on the charts in 1957, which he wrote. Norman has also shared his talents for composing and writing music for worthwhile national charities. He is the composer of Throw a Dime My Way, the National March of Dimes song. Throw a Dime My Way was selected by the March of Dimes as their national song from a field of over 39,000 entries. He also composed the song Have a Heart, Lend a Hand, the world theme song for Variety Club International, and he was awarded 8 national ASCAP awards for musical compositions. We're going to listen to a recording now of Norman singing one of the compositions that he wrote that perhaps you have not heard. It is titled, Help Me to the Blues. Let's listen.
So she's gonna let you fall on your head, and you're praying oh so hard you were dead. You cared so much, but you've just lost your touch. Let me help you to the blues. Suddenly the moon fell down from the sky, and it makes no difference how hard you try. Can't put it back, everything's turning black. Let me help you to the blues. Who am I, you ask me? Just a devil in disguise. I've been called on to help you. I will if you'll just realize that I'm with you 'cause I know how you feel. Suddenly your whole darn world seems unreal. Give me your hand, I know you'll understand when I help you to the blues. Just a devil in disguise. I've been called on to help you, and I will if you just realize that I'm with you 'cause I know how you feel. Suddenly your whole darn world seems unreal. Give me your hand, I know you'll understand when I help you to the blues. Let me help you to the blues.
Wow. Amazing. That was awesome. Norman also loved Las Vegas and the state of Nevada, and he understood the joy and the responsibility that he had to give back to the Las Vegas he loved by sharing his time, his talents, and his resources. He served on countless community boards that were instrumental in improving the health, wellness, theater, and arts of the greater Las Vegas area. He actually commented to me that one of his proudest accomplishments was when he was appointed Poet Laureate for the state of Nevada. And on your program today that you were given, you will find two of his poems that are in there. I want to read to you the one, Nevada, I Love That Name. You can still hear the bantering of the Skinners of yesteryear. Their voices ring sheerly in the desert night, so eerie, yet loud and clear. They speak of the dusty wagon trains, the heroes that would come and go, the Indians' plight, and Mexicans too, and death in the Donner snow. Spitting out names like Pizen Switch gave them a sense quite unique, a form of flying in the Ruby Range with highs up to Wheeler Peak. They speak of the mines and the ore fields of Nevada of yesteryear, where Comstock, Goldfield, Gabbs, and McGill gave wealth so rich men could play. The Fargo banks of the early gambler with fast guns and ill-shuffled decks, where quite a few won all they played for, while others who did lost their necks. The balance came in with the Mormons and all other religions too, a gift of God, equity with dignity, a spiritual lift on the avenue. The immigrants, ranchers, freighters, and merchants, all part of our history's scene, the ingredients that made it all possible to live the American dream. To live and know that Nevada was more than a passing state. With its shadowy deserts, valleys, and mountains, it could never be less than great. And great is what Nevada is. And that's quite easy to see. A place unlike anywhere else in this world, the home for you and me, by Norman Kaye. Norman lived an amazing life. He met dignitaries, royalty, experienced things that most people never get to experience. Yet, as I mentioned, he was as kind to the common person as he was to the royalty he met, and he always remembered their name. I met Norman 3 years ago when my mother moved into the Heights, and Norman moved in shortly after my mother was there. And over the years, I would come in every maybe 6 to 8 weeks to visit my mother from California, where I'm from. And Norman always tried to remember my name. Sometimes he could, and sometimes he couldn't. But names were important to him, I know. And I had no idea who Norman Kaye was, other than the kindest, most gentle man I had the privilege of sitting in the lobby and singing songs with. Norman would enjoy pie with us, and always, I love to sing. Music has been a part of my life. I'm not nearly as talented as many of you in this room, but I have a heart full of music. And he always, when the music would come, he always lit up. He was all about the music. And so today, I'm so pleased and honored to invite 3 people to come up who knew this Norman Kaye. The memories that we share are an amazing gift to those who have the privilege of hearing. And there's so much to celebrate about Norman. And so first, I would like to ask Nelson Sardelli to come at this time and share your thoughts about your dear friend, Norman Kaye. Thank you, Nelson.
Barbara, friends, Norman was much more than a legend in Las Vegas, Nevada. He was not just an icon in the city. Norman Kaye was and is part of the foundation of our city. Thanks to him, people like me were able to make a living. He was one of the first guys I met. When I came to Vegas, there was something about his handshake. Norm was the kind of man that had the quality of making you feel good about yourself. When I met him, he took an interest in my career. George Soares, my manager, introduced me to him, and George just gave me one of the greatest friends I had. He was also the best man in my wedding. Norm was the kind of guy that was able to inspire people. He took an interest in the days of my formative career. Even made an appointment with Universal Studios to take me there to be introduced to, I forgot the gentleman's name now, but he was big. Saul something or other. And I remember that I was so excited the night before, I didn't sleep. Then in the morning, very early, we drove, the 3 of us, to Los Angeles because the appointment was at 10 o'clock. Saul Baiano was his name. I'm 78, I have the right to forget. Saul Baiano was a gentleman too, and he said, Norm, I love you. If you come at 10 o'clock, I can only give you 10, 15 minutes. I want to meet the Sardelli guy. Why don't you come at 2 and we'll have a wonderful time. We had time to meet the young man. And George was excited. I was excited. I was also very tired. And we went for lunch. And as a good Italian boy, I got carried away. I ate a lot. I ate an enormous lot. And we came back at 2 o'clock to meet. And I remember Norman Kaye selling me to this guy. Nelson is dynamic. Nelson has this energy and the vibration. And Nelson Sardelli was... I had sunk on that poltrona that I was out to lunch completely. But they understood, it was my only day off in the week. So Saul was kind enough to make an appointment for me to go read in the days when you read for police shows. By the way, I'm talking like this because I'm having some implants in my tooth, and right now I have this bridge over the roof of my mouth, and I'm a gagger, and I'm fighting not to look bad here. And I got this appointment, and I never forgot because Norm was also very excited about that. And I went to meet these people for this police show. I can't remember what it was, maybe one of those, God knows, in the 60s. And after I read and everything, the guy said, Nelson, you're okay, but with your accent, you could never play a policeman. I felt that he was out of line because, I said, okay, no problem, sir, I'll be a bad guy. And I left. I got in the car, I drove 2 blocks, and I made an improper left. A policeman stopped me. And he came to me and said, let me see your driving license. I said, pal, I don't care how big my ticket is going to be, but you're going to go back with me to the studios. And the guy said, why? I said, because, my accent, I didn't get a part in the movie, and there you are wanting my driving license. He says, well, that's nothing. My first sergeant is German. I could imagine him stopping me and saying, let me see your papers, please. So I felt. So those are the things that I share with Norm. And like I said, what I remember about him, and I shall always do, Norm make you feel good about yourself. I love him, and I will always forever. And if you allow me.
Thank you, Nelson. Don Lance, will you please come at this time and share your memories?
I first met Norman in 1979. It was about 13 years after the trio broke up, so I don't have any stories of the good old days. But what I'd like to share with you this afternoon is how Norman affected my life personally. At that time, I was selling copy machines, and I was just going door to door, knocking on doors. You don't want to buy a copy machine today, do you? And Norman said, by the way, I do. And he must have been a soft touch because he bought 2 copy machines from me, one for each office. And that's when I first met him. But then I realized that we had something in common. We were both musicians. And when he mentioned the Mary Kaye Trio, right away I remembered them from watching them on television when I was young. And so that's how my relationship started with Norman. And of course, the Mary Kaye Trio, incredible group, as you've already seen on the film right there. But something happened about 12 or 13 years ago that was probably the biggest honor of my life. Norman came to me and he said, Don, Mary and I are going to be doing a reunion at the Stardust Hotel. Can you put together a band and do the show with us? And I would have never suspected that 40 years later, after I first saw them on 77 Sunset Strip, that 40 years later, I would be doing something with them. Wow. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So I got to play piano, and there were they couldn't find any of the musical arrangements, so I had to recreate some of them. And we got to rehearsing, and their partner, Frank, had already passed on, and so Norman asked me to sing Frank's part. Wow! I mean, I still can't believe it to this day. So we put all this work in to go to the show, and when we got there, they were running late on the sound checks. The sound checks were in the afternoon, the show was in the evening. They were running a little bit late on the sound checks. And by the time we got there, they gave us 5 minutes to do a sound check. And to be honest with you, we couldn't even get through one song. And when we asked for a little bit more time, well, they weren't all that nice. And so the point I'm trying to make is I got very, very incredibly angry over that, very angry. And Norman noticed that. And as Nelson said, Norman always had a way of making you feel good about yourself. Norman came over to me and started talking to me, put his arm around my shoulder. He said, hey, Don, listen, don't worry about it. It's going to be all right. I said, Norman, it's not going to be all right. We can't even hear ourselves. He said, it's going to be all right, Don. Come on, let's go out to lunch. So he took me out, bought me some lunch, and made me feel just that high. And, the show went over very well. And it was great. And Norman said, we're going to do some other things. And we'd always talked about Norman, Mary, and I getting together and doing some things. And right around that same time, we did a couple of record shows where they would have a table set up and pictures, and there were other artists there, such as Tommy Sands. If you remember, Tommy Sands was at one of the shows, and Ray Peterson, they're saying, Tell Laura I Love Her. But there was all artists that had tables, and we had pictures set up and where they could do autographs. And so Norman and I are walking from the parking lot to the room where it was at Caesar's Palace, and it was a long way from the parking ramp. And Norman was 25 years older than me, and he was so strong and healthy, and he was walking, and I could not keep up with him. And I'm yelling across the Caesar's Palace, Norman, wait for me, Norman. And it just amazed me how physically fit he was and how excited and enthusiastic he was about this record show. And we got there and we had some pictures, and And Norman says, Don, go ahead, sign the picture. I said, Norman, I'm not on the picture. I'm not part of the Mary Kay Trio. And he said, well, you are now. And that again was Norman. Norman was the kindest, probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. He was always concerned about other people. He was concerned about me and always wanted to make me feel like I was part of his life. A special memory that I have is at Christmas time a few years ago, Norman and Barbara came over to my house, and Norman's sister Mary were there, and we had a Christmas dinner. And after that, we went into the living room, and I put on a video of an hour-long show that Norman and Mary did in Australia. And here it is 40 years later, and they're sitting in my living room watching this show and singing along with the songs. And I actually took a videotape of them watching the show. And the looks on their face and on Norman's face when they were watching the show and watching themselves. Do you remember that, Barbara? Singing and just having a great time. And that's a special memory in my heart, just to see them watching themselves and just the reaction that they had. Of course, Norman has been in the Heights for a couple of years right now. And another great memory that I have is that every once in a while at dinner time, if I was over there, I'd sit down at the piano and do a little sing-along or something like that. In fact, there was one time when Mary Kay Purcell Mendenhall, who was part of one of Norman's groups, the Ambassadors, was there, and we did something together. It was a lot of fun, and I believe some of the ambassadors are here today, and thank you for coming to honor Norman. But I'd sit there, and every time I did it, I made sure that I did one or two of Norman's songs. My favorite happened to be a Miley Lay, one of the most beautiful songs ever written. But I'd be at the piano and singing, and all of a sudden I'd hear this other voice, and turn, and sure enough, it was Norman singing. And so I'd keep playing the piano, but I stopped singing, and Norman would sing. And the look on Norman's face when he sang these songs, and these people at the nursing home were clapping and applauding Norman. And here he is, 86, 87 years old, still entertaining people. What a thrill to see the expression on Norman's face. That's something that I'll never forget. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever had the pleasure or possibly the pain of shaking Norman's hand, but Norman had a grip like a vice. Every time he shook my hand, the next day I had to go to the doctor and have my fingers relocated. He was just that kind of a guy, just that loving, kind type of a guy that just makes an impression on your life, and you can't forget it. I'll never forget the impression he made on my life and the things that we did and the respect that we had for each other. For about maybe the last year or so, when I go to see Norman at the nursing home, sometimes he knew me, sometimes he didn't. But the last time I saw Norman, which was about several weeks, 2-3 weeks before he passed, I walked into the nursing home, and this is my last memory of Norman, and probably one of the best, because I walked in there, and he took one look at me and said, "Hi, Don," which he hadn't done for a while. He recognized me immediately. That made my day. That made my week, probably. That just to know that he recognized me. And so these are some things that I just wanted to share with you that have really impacted my life. Mary and Norman and I would often talk about spiritual things. I know that Mary had a great love in her heart for Jesus, and so did Norman. Norman had told me on a number of times that he really loved Jesus. And so even though there's some sadness with knowing that we'll not be able to see Norman again for a little while, I think we can take some joy and some comfort in knowing that right now he is sharing eternity with his Lord and Savior. And I just want to say, Norman, thanks for being my friend, and we'll all get to see you soon.
Thank you so much. I had the privilege of one of those impromptu times at the piano at the Heights with Don and with Norman, and just watching him light up. That's one of my treasures, and I'm just so grateful for the timing when I just happened to be there when it happened. It was very special to me. The last person that we're going to ask and come and share publicly, we will have a time at the reception afterwards, and we're going to celebrate Norman, and any of you who have something to share, I would invite you to do it at the reception following. Obviously, our service is quite long, and so we needed to limit the number of people that would come up and speak. But Norman's life would not be completely celebrated without a representative from the ambassadors. And I don't know a lot about that, and I don't know, Alicia, whether you're going to be sharing a little bit of that or not. Are you? Okay, then I'm not even going to attempt. I'm just going to introduce Alicia Sibio to come up at this time, a member of the ambassadors, to share thoughts about Norman Kaye. Thank you, Alicia, for coming.
Good afternoon. I was going to write everything down. In fact, I did write everything down, and then I thought, no, I'm just not going to do that. It's far more important to me to speak from the heart, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do. As Don said, I'm part of the Las Vegas Ambassadors, or was part of the Las Vegas Ambassadors, which was Norman's group. That was Norman's baby. We were kind of a three-part set, the Las Vegas Ambassadors, kind of like a Star Wars movie with many sequels. In '69, I met Norman, but there had been a group already previous to that. I think they were the original Las Vegas Ambassadors. The group that I belong to, I like to call us the new and improved Las Vegas Ambassadors. That's the way I felt. And then the third group, many of whom I do not know, but they're like the sequel, the 3D movie that came after. So many of these people I do not know, but the thing that ties us together, of course, was the music and the friendships. Many years ago, during the Korean War, there was a young soldier that was stationed in Seoul by the name of Thomas S. Monson. He is now, of course, the prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he told a story that has stuck with me for so many years that I'd like to share with you. There was a mess tent, or a mess hall, as they would say, that was built in the camp where he was serving, and the reason that they had it built up on this wooden platform was because it was so wet and so muddy. And so many of the Koreans that helped the U.S. soldiers that worked there would be walking on that wooden platform where the mess hall was, but when they would see a soldier coming, or soldiers coming, they would jump off into the mud and let the soldiers back on the wooden platform so that they didn't get their boots muddy. When Thomas S. Monson saw this, he stopped the one elderly gentleman and picked him up out of the mud and put him on the wooden platform. And he said, no, we are a guest in your country. It is an honor to be here. And the Korean said to him, you are a #1 Christian. And that's the way I felt about Norman. He was a #1 Christian. The reason for that is so many reasons, but one of the reasons is that when we joined this group, there were so many of us that didn't have a great home life. It was chaotic or pretty dysfunctional or just non-existent. And so what he offered to us was a great opportunity to be with people many days out of the week, 3 times a week rehearsal and shows on the weekends, and it was fantastic to belong to someone, to belong to a family. And that is just something you cannot take lightly. It was wonderful for us. So I'll kind of tell you how I met Norman. My school teacher, my choral teacher, suggested that he thought I was talented enough to go audition for Norman. I did not know who Norman was. I didn't know about the Mary Kaye Trio. I had no idea who he was or what he represented. And so I practiced for weeks and weeks and weeks on my little $15 guitar that I bought at the pawn shop downtown on Fremont Street. And I played The Sounds of Silence with Simon and Garfunkel. Boy, I thought I was just magnificent. And I played in my bedroom to myself, so of course I was magnificent. So when I got to the studio, I walked in, and the first thing Norman said was, "Can I help you?" And I was confused, and I said, "I think so. I think I'm here to sing for you." He said, "Really?" I said, yeah. And I had my little guitar with me. He said, "Can you sing a chromatic scale?" And I went, Sure. Absolutely. Didn't have a clue what that was. But I wasn't going to tell him that, so he sat down and he started to play up and down the keyboard. And I think I hit every other note. I'm pretty sure. And then the next thing he said to me was, "Can you sight read?" And I said, "Sure." Because I figured if I was going to tell a little lie, I was going to be all in. I was just going to go for it. So thank God the phone rang, and I didn't have to read that sheet music. That was fabulous. And then he said, "Oh, are you going to play for me?" And I said, "Yeah." So I sat down and did what I thought was a spectacular version of The Sounds of Silence. Norman was very patient, and then he looked at me and he said, "Honey, didn't anybody ever tell you that I just hate folk music?" I just lost it in what I do when I'm nervous. I just laughed, and I couldn't quit laughing, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I thought, well, that's it. I'm done. I can just pack it in. And he goes, "Oh, you're a comedian. That's what you are. You're a comedian." I said, "Yes, absolutely. That's what I am." He said, "Well, you got moxie, and you can be in the group." And that was it for me. I was just on cloud nine. So that was my experience in meeting him. And he gave so many of us an opportunity, not just to perform, but he gave us an opportunity for lifelong friendships. Some of us met our spouses and lifelong boyfriend-girlfriend relationships and all of those things that are so meaningful. He gave to us. He was non-judgmental. He was so kind. We were in rehearsal one day, and I won't name any names, I promise. He was some girl who will remain nameless, was singing off key. And Norman, at the end of the song, very quietly said, "Keep looking, honey, you'll find it." It was the greatest. He was the greatest. And he was like that always, always, always. He was never judgmental. He was never mean. He would never do anything to you publicly that would embarrass you. Sometimes he'd call you to the side and you'd have a little talking to, but that would be about it. So he was wonderful in that way. His generosity just knew no bounds. He was an amazing man. I was riding with him in the car in Spencer one day, and the song came on the radio that was "Close to You," Karen Carpenter. And he said, "Al, what is that music?" I said, "You don't know this music?" He said, "No." I said, "Oh, well, this is just the greatest group ever. This is Karen Carpenter, and she's got a magnificent voice." He said, "Yes." He goes, "I want that song in our repertoire. I want that song." He said, "Get me a copy of that song." He said, "And find somebody who can sing it, because it's not going to be you." That's right. That's right. And that's okay, because I knew I was the comedian. So that was my job. You know, there is a beautiful poem by one of my favorite American poets in American literature. His name is William Wordsworth. And he wrote a poem called "Ode to Immortality." That is my favorite, and I would just like to leave you with that. Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, the beauty of the flower, we will grieve not, but find strength in that which remains behind. And God bless you, Norman, and God be with you till we meet again.
Thank you, Alicia. In your program are directions. The ambassadors are hosting a time of reception after the graveside service. You all are invited. And again, if there's a thought that you would like to share about Norman, we'll have a time of sharing at that and just a real celebration. So we encourage you to come if you can. Norman was also a husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather. And so Tracy is going to come at this time and share thoughts on behalf of his children.
First of all, hello everybody. Thank you for attending this celebration of my dad's life. My name is Tracy. I'm the junior brother to my older, uglier brother, John. and my sister Sherry. And my sister Sherry, who I absolutely adore. My dad, what an incredible life he had. As a child, my dad would take us everywhere with him and introduce us to his celebrity friends. I remember riding in an elevator with Frank Sinatra, going up to his suite to have lunch with Frank Sinatra. Or another time where I sat at the front row watching the Beatles, and then we went backstage and got to meet them. Or being rescued out of a pool when I fell in a swimming pool. I wasn't even old enough to swim yet, and Frankie Avalon pulled me out. Or having Don Ho sing Happy Birthday to me at my 6th birthday. All my brothers experienced these, had similar experiences. My dad was the consummate networker. Frequently, he would take us along with him to his meetings. We'd arrive at a hotel, and we'd go into the coffee shop, and he'd sit us down in a booth where there was a phone so we could make and receive phone calls. From the moment we got out of the car, he honed in on his craft of networking, calling everyone by name that we passed, saying hello, shaking hands, or giving hugs and kisses. He did this with the valet parker when we got out of the car to go in the hotel, all the way to the porter when we walked out. He would ask about their children or their work or whatever was important to them, recalling details of their lives such as their children's names or their positions at work or what have you. He was awesome at that. I was recently reminded of the importance of this by a friend of mine, Kim Whitney, who was a valet parker at the Sahara Hotel for about 35 years. When she posted a comment on my Facebook wall that said, "Your dad was one of our favorite customers back in the day at the Sahara." And again by Alicia Sibio, who told me of a time that Dad walked up to her while she was on a live crap game, stopped the game, and started chatting with her and gave her a hug. My dad could get away with that. We couldn't as dealers. My dad put great emphasis on remembering a person's name. This was paramount to him. When I was about 8 years old, one morning about 4 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of winter, my dad woke me up and he shook me, and he whispers in my ear, "Get up, son. I want to go show you something." He then put a parka on me, and he guided me outside to the curb and cuddled me to keep me warm while we waited. After a few minutes, a garbage truck came at the end of the street, and as it arrived at our house, the driver and his coworker got out and started walking towards my dad and me. And my dad reached out to him to shake their hands, and he says, "Hi, Richard. Hi, Bob. I want you to meet my son, Tracy." They talked for a few minutes, and then they went on their way. And then he held me close to him and started walking me back to the house. He said to me, "Son, it's extremely important to remember people's names and to treat them with respect and dignity." He says, "No matter what their lot in life is." He then said, "Richard and Bob and their families and friends have all bought homes from my company. Throughout my life, I've done my best to emulate this. Unfortunately, I come up short in comparison to my dad. My dad had some of the best advice, sometimes delivered in a quote, sometimes just straightforward, but always kind of vague. Like, if you hang out in a barber shop, you're going to get a haircut. Be careful where you hang out, son. He should have been more specific, as I ended up hanging out at discotheques and bars and the Musicians Union, whatever. Another time back in 1980, my friend Geely, very close to Batista's son who was here, we were in front of my dad's office talking, and Geely and I just recently had got divorced from our wives we were married to about 4 years. And the Iran situation was heating up, and it looked like Reagan was going to get elected, and there may be a war breaking out. So my dad says to both of us, he says, if this turns to war and there's a draft, married men and children with children are the last to go. He says, so you should both go get married, remarried again. The sun didn't shine before we were married again. We both went down to the Justice of Peace that day and got married together. I'll say it again, he should have been more specific. Like telling us to wait till there's actually a draft would have been good. For your information, within 6 months we were divorced again. And our wives got the other half that they didn't get from the first divorce. Jeannie and I get a kick out of that to this day. In the process of preparing for this service, I was given the task of supplying the music. It has been and continues to be quite the experience for me. I want to thank my brother John and Don Lance for providing the music to me. It is priceless and has filled my air ever since. I must have listened to "My Lele for Your Hair" 100 times. I've not heard my dad's music in over 40 years. It's been overwhelming, to say the least. Listening to him sing and the lyrics he wrote took me back to my childhood and that magical and exciting era of my dad's music career. While listening, I could hear my brother Richard's voice and feel my brother Donnie's passion and see where my brother John got his poetic abilities and grasp my sister's gentle soul and sense his love for his wife, Barbara. I can't even begin to tell you where his music took me this past several days. Gus, are you in here? Are there any other musicians here that played music with my dad? Okay. How fun was that, guys? I bet it was. I can only imagine in your 20s or 30s with hanging out with celebrity status. My thoughts are going to need some spiritual help after this. During all this, I had the pleasure of talking to a few of the Las Vegas ambassadors. They were in their teens or their 20s, traveling around the world. The impact on them must have been monumental. It's heartwarming to know my dad was a major contributor in all of that and how it helped mold some of their paths. The time that I spent with my dad that I am most grateful for was in my mid-20s, when I would go over to his house and play gin rummy for hours. During these times, we shared our most intimate moments together, and it was the first time in my life I was able to have time with him alone, all by myself. I can't speak for my brothers, but my relationship with my dad resembles the song Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin. So the times I did get to spend with my dad, are the most precious to me. I'm very proud of my dad and his accomplishments. And though he is my dad, he also belongs to Las Vegas, the music community and the Hawaiian community. After all, a man with accomplishments that look like the results of a Google search has to belong to someone more than his family. In closing, I would like to once again thank everyone for coming today. And to say to my brothers and my sister and Barbara that I hope you find comfort, as I do, in knowing that God is a just God. He has a reward for all of us, and Dad is off to his. Sweet aloha, Dad. You will be missed. Mahalo.
Thank you, Tracy. In an interview of Norman that I found online, he stated that his favorite poem he wrote was one called "We Are One," written on Mother's Day. It's a poem about mothers. And as I met with the boys Saturday night in preparation for our service today, they shared with me that their father had great respect for women and the virtues that they provide to the world. And so it's certainly reflected in this poem that I would like to read and then close with a few thoughts. We Are One by Norman Kaye, Poet Laureate, State of Nevada. My sorrow is yours, my happiness is yours. The ordeals of my life you suffer through with me. For we are one, dear mother, and will always be one as we drift through the time we call this eternity. As my head rises in the sun, so shall yours rise too. And whatever luck befalls me, a little will fall on you. For we are one, dear mother, truly an inseparable thing, more than we dare give credence to, truth with a resounding ring. If I'm down, you're blue. If I hurt, you wince. If I win, you smile. If I cry, you're sad. No matter where you are, no matter where I am. For there's always that spiritual cord that binds us tight through life, no matter what our victories, no matter what our strife. For I am you. I am of you. I am with you. And that I'll always be. That's why, dear mother, though this be your day, it's also meaningful to me. I am you, dear mother, and you are me, and we are one. Beautiful poem. Norman knew heartache in his life. He lost his mother. His mother died when he was 5, and he knew great joy as well. The spiritual cord that he speaks of in this poem, and the spiritual aspect of Norman that's been said through the speakers, he was a God-fearing man, not religious, but God-fearing and God-loving. The spiritual cord that binds me is my faith and the promise of heaven. And so I wonder what it will be like. I frequently, as a pastor, as a hospital chaplain, wonder what heaven will be like. What is Norman experiencing right now? There is a book. It's called 90 Minutes in Heaven. It's by Don Piper. And the author of this book actually had a near-death experience and spent 90 minutes in heaven. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I do believe that people have near-death experiences and see heaven. As a matter of fact, in my over 10 years in hospital ministry as hospital chaplain, when people were dying, they would tell me about what they saw in heaven. And there's always this same cord that runs through it. And it's wonderful. It gives us hope. It's just amazing to think about what is heaven going to be like. I want to read an excerpt from this book. I'd love to read this whole book to you, but unfortunately we don't have time for that. But there is a point in this book that talks about the music in heaven. And it's beautiful, and it's so fitting because Norman's life here on earth was all about the music. And so let me share with you from 90 Minutes in Heaven about the music in heaven. The celestial tunes surpassed any I had ever heard. I couldn't calculate the number of songs, perhaps thousands, offered up simultaneously, and yet there was no chaos because I had the capacity to hear each one and discern the lyrics and the melody. I marveled at the glorious music. As I've pondered the meaning of the memory of the music, it seems curious to me. I would have expected the most memorable experience to be something I had seen or the physical embrace of a loved one. Yet above anything else, everything else, I cherished those sounds I heard when I was in heaven, and at times I think I can't wait to hear them again in person. It's what I look forward to. Most of all, I want to hear those never-ending songs again in heaven. In those minutes I spent in heaven, they held no sense of time for me. Others touched me, and their warm embraces were absolutely real. I saw colors I would never, ever have believed existed. I've never felt more alive than I felt when I was in heaven. I was home. I was where I belonged. I wanted to be there more than I had ever wanted to be anywhere on earth. Time had slipped away, and I simply was present in heaven. All my worries, anxieties, and concerns vanished. I had no needs, and I felt perfect. It's a great book. I want to take a moment to share with you what the Bible says about heaven. In John chapter 14, it's probably one of the scriptures that is the very most read at services. And these are Jesus' words that were spoken to the disciples. And it's John chapter 14. Let me read it to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me, Jesus. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I'll come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am, with Jesus. Jesus said to his disciples, you know where I'm going. And Thomas, the doubting disciple, said to Jesus, Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? And Jesus answered him, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The scriptures. God has prepared a room for every single one of you, an incredibly beautiful room, unlike any you've ever seen. And when he's ready, he'll call us. Now, I tell you, Norman's room was ready in the early morning hours of September 17th, and God called him home. Our room in heaven is not something we can buy or earn. It is simply by having faith, God-fearing, God-loving, faith and accepting the fact that Jesus gave us the gift of eternal life on his death on the cross. Norman's life was all about the music, and in the end, a God-fearing man and a man of faith who knew that he had a room prepared for him. What I just read to you about the author and what he saw in heaven is literally what Norman is experiencing right now. Amazing music, unlike any he has heard or experienced. And believe me, we've heard some amazing music today. He is literally part of the angel chorus. Wow. Once again, making music. He has no worries. He has no anxieties. He has no concerns. He has no more pain. He has no more suffering. He has no more needs. He is not bound in a body that was broken. He is alive and well and perfect. For that, man, I rejoice. I'm grateful. And I'm so thankful for the hope that we have. I can't wait to get up to heaven and stand by Norman in the angel chorus and make beautiful music, because that is what we have to look forward to. Will you pray with me? Lord, I thank you so much for everyone who's gathered here today. Lord, for the wonderful friends and everyone in this room, I thank you. And Lord, again, I ask you to bring comfort to hearts that may be hurting, for you are the great comforter. Lord, I thank you for your word that feeds our soul. And God, I thank you for the promise that you've made that you have a room ready for us. And I thank you that Norman is in his room at this time and that he has no more physical limitations, that he's whole and complete. We just are so grateful for the opportunity to come today and remember Norman's life, as amazing as it was, and honor him in his death. So I thank you for this time, and I pray this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. I would like to invite Palm Mortuary to come at this time, and they will be presenting the flag to Barbara.
I'm going to ask you to please rise to the piano taps. Please, you may be seated. On behalf of our great nation, it is my honor and my privilege to present the flag to you, Barbara, for the honor and service of your husband to this country.
And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Palm Mortuary is going to come now. Arthur, will you come and give us direction, please?
Thank you, Reverend Nancy, for those beautiful words of prayer and service. And if you'll allow me, I can't help but making a statement that Norman's life, what I just saw, reminds me of one of my favorite movies, It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, how he's touched all of you so much and how he's touched so many lives. Please honor him and his name as you go through your life in your prayers and your conversations and your thoughts. We're just about to conclude our chapel service at this time. And if you are a pallbearer, please remain in the chapel. We're going to allow the rest of you to come forward and say a goodbye and a farewell to Norman and your final thoughts with him. We'll ask you, if you are seated, please remain seated. We'll usher you from the rear and leaving just the family behind so that they may have a final moment. If you'll exit these doors here, if you need assistance, we have a golf cart right outside the door here. It'll hold 5 comfortably if you need that assistance. If you do not plan to go to graveside, keep in mind that we still have the guest book outside if you just still didn't get a chance to sign it as you came in. If you are going to graveside, we will proceed from this location. It'll just be a brief moment. And at the reception, you'll have plenty of opportunity to remain or to continue your stories, and I'm sure there are plenty of them. Norman is a library with many stories to tell. Right now, we will conclude our service here, and we will usher you forward to say your final goodbye to Norman. Thank you very much.
My name is Don Hill. I met Norman many years in my times with the Trinities for 55 years, so he had to be near me somewhere along the way, especially here in Las Vegas. And I'm glad to have met what a wonderful man. In fact, I played one of his benefits, and I went down and shook his hand right before I started, and he was happy for me to do that. And he squeezed my hand like they say he does with every person.
Hello there to all of the members of the family and friends of Norman Kaye, and I know there are many, many of you. I just wanted to say hello and thank you for so many of the great things that Norman taught us. I was a member of the Las Vegas Ambassadors. My name is Kathy Newbury when I was in the Ambassadors, then later it was Taylor, and now it's Ariana. A few names along the way, but same person. And I have followed along in Norman's footsteps in many ways. I'm also a realtor, as well as John and Tracy being realtors. We've all taken on that profession, but I'm also still in show business. And I'm doing a show called Nonsense, which is at the Hilton right now, and I was recounting some stories to the girls in the show of the kinds of things that Norman taught us when we were in the Ambassadors. And I said, he would have these exercises where we would have to approach the microphone, take the microphone down with our left hand. We would hold the mic with the right, take it down with the left, then take the microphone off, set the stand aside, and then sing the song. And he would teach us how to walk down the stairs and how to perform. And the girls said, he taught you presence. Well, the way he taught it to us was so natural, we didn't know that's what he was teaching us. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing to tell about a person that could teach young people presence without them even knowing that's what he was teaching them. And the girls all said, who teaches that now? Nobody teaches kids that exact specific thing. And I just want to say thank you, Norman, because you have helped me to carry that through my entire life, and it has served me well, and I love you. Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha, Norman. This is little Frankie Ross, just saying how much aloha and love and memories I have of us all growing up together. And this is truly the end of an era for all of us. We're going to miss you. We love you. You and Dad and Mary are probably going to be getting the band back together, and I think that's probably pretty important. I look forward to seeing you all one day, but gosh, the memories are unbelievable. And from seeing you guys on stage to all of the memories of all of us just growing up and playing together, and all of the memories off stage were probably even more important to me, and the closeness of all of us, and how close all of our kids and grandkids are still to this day. That is because of you, my dad and Mary. And for that, I love you very much. Aloha.
My name is Joe Rogers. I appreciate this opportunity to say one last goodbye to my friend Norman. I only knew Norman for about 2 years, but we got very close because we were in he was in a common situation with my wife. So we sat at the dinner table in the Heights where he and my wife were residents, and I got to know and love Norman very well in the 2 years that I knew him. In the end, he could sometimes remember my name, sometimes he couldn't, but he called me his buddy, and when I would say, who am I, Norman, and he'd say, you're my buddy, and he'd say, we are buddies, Norman, you're mine also, and he would always say, buddies till the end. So, buddy, this is the end and my final goodbye. God bless you. It's been my privilege to know you, and I'm glad that your body is whole again and you're sitting in the presence of God. That would be my prayer, that God would make you whole again and you could listen to the heavenly music and join the choir up there. Soon I hope to join you, buddy, and I'll be expecting to hear your music, which will be more glorious than it ever was here on earth. So long, buddy. See you soon.
I want to thank everybody who came out this afternoon for my father's send-off. For all of you who are musicians, I really think that you have something special in life to be thankful for. The people who are musicians because of my dad, you know what this means to be a musician. It's a very different type of lifestyle that we have because we have that appreciation for the music. And if he's been the person who touched you, I think this is something that'll last you for a lifetime. Myself and my cousin are first generations of the trio that became musicians, and we hope to have more musicians in our family. However, as it stands right now, the Mary Kay Trio is back together again, and we appreciate you all coming out and being part of this celebration.
Of my love for you, my love, of my love.